So hello everyone, and thank you again so much for being here today. My name is Jory and I am our customer advocate here at Nesterly. Today I will be leading the last of our community conversations. This presentation will probably last about 30 minutes and it's going to provide information on today's topic, which is hearing from a host and what is it like to home share during the COVID-19 pandemic. Like I mentioned a moment ago, we are recording, so if you don't want to be seen, please just turn off your video camera now, and please be sure to be muted so that there's no background noise outside of our presenters. All right, here we go. So for today's agenda, just so everyone knows, is we are going to be hearing from one of our Nesterly hosts, Brenda, about her experience opening her home to home share during the COVID-19 pandemic. Then we will open our discussion to a question and answer portion for Brenda if you have any questions for her. And I will also answer any additional questions myself that you may have about Nesterly in general. Here we go. So let's meet our host, Brenda, who has this amazing illustration that I think is just the coolest thing ever. Brenda has been a Nesterly host since 2017 and has home shared 5 different guests in her home. Let's learn a little bit more about her. Brenda is awesome. Simply said, she works with community groups to sponsor events that bring value to people who are over 50 in the community. She is dedicated to meeting new people, connecting with people of all ages and backgrounds to collaborate on ideas that will have real, meaningful impact. We feel so lucky to have Brenda as a member of our Nesterly community. And Brenda, if you don't mind me asking, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, you know, I'm a Bostonian, kind of born and raised. So this is my home. This is my community. I love people. And as I got older, I realized that I could enjoy people in any way I wanted to, which was wonderful. So I got out in community as an older adult and said, okay, how are we going to enjoy ourselves for the rest of our lives? And I really got involved. I've always been involved in my community, but I really started looking closer at my community in terms of living our best lives as we get older and what we can do. So as a result of that, I became involved in various activities such as the mayor's Council on Aging and, you know, AARP and the Encore Boston Network and of course, Nesterly, which we'll talk about, absolutely. Yeah. And just, I do a lot of events now virtually as it relates to not just aging, but the intergenerational aspects of life. Mm-hmm. I guess as I crossed into aging, I began to see that there are generations and how do we come together and how do we work together. Mm-hmm. So though that's kind of my love and my passion is just building bridges between people and working together. And again, it's about living our best lives.
Absolutely. I love what you said about building bridges and, you know, connecting with 2 different generations, different types of people. I think that really, you know, amplifies what Nesterly is all about as well. So I love that. And I think that's a beautifully said way of going into our next slide. So what's going to happen next is I will be asking Brenda some questions with regards to home sharing during the COVID-19 pandemic, and I'll allow her to you know, take a few moments to answer each one. If you do have questions for her, please hold till the end. We do have specific time outlined for anyone to ask Brenda something that we might not have covered here. All right. So how long have you been home sharing during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, I've actually been home sharing throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. As you mentioned, I've been home sharing since the very beginning, quite frankly, with Nesterly. Mm-hmm. And this year, well, I was home sharing last year, and I home share with students. And I had two graduate level students who left to go home for their spring break and never returned because
Mm,
of what happened with the whole COVID-19 and the schools closing and switching to online learning. With that said, I began to think about home sharing and what that meant to me within this COVID-19 pandemic, and gave it some thought since I had that time between that April break, and then we went through the summer, and then September was coming back around. So I really gave it some serious thought about
mhm.
home sharing and COVID-19, and asked myself, well, do I still want to continue it? If so, why? If not, why not? And searching myself and looking at what I get out of home sharing and what I feel I give in terms of home sharing, I felt like it was something I did want to continue with. So when September came back around,
Mhm.
and within the COVID-19, I can only speak from my own personal
Of
experiences,
course.
but within the COVID-19 scenario, obviously the people, my students aren't local, so that they're coming here to be able to physically go into the classroom environment. They're not doing online learning. So that's why they're coming back here. So I actually wound up with one student that was staying with me prior to COVID who returned
Mhm.
after the COVID.
Right, right. That perfectly leads into my next question is how are you and your guest, actively working to protect each other? Did you have a specific conversation around protocol, for keeping each other safe? Because as you mentioned, it sounds like your guest is actually currently going into the classroom, into the university. So if you can speak to that a little bit, I think we would love to hear how you're navigating that.
Well, I think talking to your guest is essential.
Mm-hmm.
And in talking with your guests, you actually will learn a lot that can help you not only manage within your own home, but help to give you a sense of a comfort zone and a sense of understanding what their environment was all about. One of the things that as I searched my mind to say, do I want to do this? Because I realized that my guests are adults. I have no control over their life, nor do I want to exercise control over their life. So I had to say in my mind, what am I looking for out of a guest? And so I'm looking for a guest that's very mature, has their own life, understands the risk of not wearing a mask and socializing and going to various parties or activities that are
Sure.
associated with sometimes going to school, et cetera. So my guests and I taught, and we still talk to this day. In fact, we had a discussion this morning. So we
Mm,
started from day one and talking about the expectations first within the school environment. Uh,
mhm.
one of the things that, quite frankly, I have learned is that at least here in the Boston area, that the schools probably go above and beyond any place else, maybe hospitals, but any place else in terms of monitoring the behaviors and the health of the people in their environment. And that was good for me to know, quite frankly.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
it absolutely and it helped me to understand and guide what I would do in my own home, to be honest with you. So for example,
Sure.
he is tested on a weekly basis.
Wow. Well, that's also, really important. But I think what you really hit on there is that communication between host and guests. And, as the pandemic has continued, what we've done here at Nesterly is we actually have guidelines for hosts who might be interested in home sharing with the guests to help guide those conversations. Because Brenda, it sounds like you are know exactly what you want to ask and how to ask it, but maybe some people who haven't home shared before. But so we do actually offer that, through our platform. And now we also have video chat, so you can get to know that person, sense that maturity level, like you're saying, if it matches with yours, all through our platform. We really want to make sure that hosts are able to home share on their terms. So I think you really echo that as well in your process. So we can go straight on to the next question, and that would be, how would you describe the benefits of having a guest in your home right now during, this pandemic? What has really benefited you by having that person there?
Well, I think the benefits during the pandemic are very similar to the benefits prior to the pandemic, which is that I'm not alone, very simply. While I share my home and I live in the city, so I have neighbors, but there is something about knowing that there's someone in your home that just, for me, is a comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
So having that person, even though, believe it or not, we don't see each other that often. This morning we had a good chance to have a conversation, and he was off and I was off. I'm not, so we have our own separate lives, but, just to be able to have somebody that you're interacting with and you can share conversation with is a wonderful thing.
Absolutely.
Without having someone in my home right now, I would feel more of a sense of isolation, even though I'm out. I truly enjoy those connections especially those intergenerational connections, when we have our conversations about life and what's going on, and I'm getting his perspective. Or not only his perspective, but he's got younger sisters and brothers, and he'll share with me what they think about a subject, etc. And that's very, very valuable to me. For me to be able to continue to look at the world, talk about the world, and have someone right there that explores the possibilities with me, I like.
That's so cool to hear. I love hearing, the experiences of our hosts. And you hit, again, these are amazing answers, and you just really hit on something that I think is so important, in that, right now we are being forced in a lot of ways to distance, to not see a lot of people, to not gather and congregate. So having someone in that home right now, depending on your, family setup and situation, can, like you said, kind of be that source of comfort. Even if you're not talking every day and doing something every day, just knowing that someone's there, it sounds like, is really valuable.
Yes.
Awesome. So I think, my next question, it may have been answered by that, but would you recommend this experience, of home sharing during COVID to others who may be interested, but are just a little nervous to take that first step?
I absolutely would. I would say go for it. I would say don't hesitate to ask any questions. Just be open about it, because you want your comfort zone to be there. I mean, that. So whatever, and if you're not comfortable, then no, I'm not going to say I recommend it. But I can say that I recommend it because I am comfortable, and I have invested the time and energy into understanding what it would take for me to be comfortable. And trust me, if I wasn't, I wouldn't be doing it. But yes, so and we talked about it during at the very beginning, that communications is just so very important. And that
communication is key.
Helps so much at getting that comfort zone. And that's why I'm doing this today, because I want people to really be able to ask me questions if they too are seeking to find out and seeking for their own comfort zones.
Absolutely. That's you hit the nail on the head again, Brenda. That was perfect. That's exactly what it is. We really do encourage people only to move forward if you do feel like that communication is there, that connection, maybe even that mutual respect as you're getting to know each other. I often tell people, you don't have to say yes to the first person that reaches out. If it doesn't feel like a natural match, if something feels off, we would absolutely rather you say no, or, you know, use one of our tools to continue investigating to see if it could be a match for you. But again, it's really important, we believe, to take the time to get to know someone to make sure it would be a great fit for you. All right, excellent. So just a few more questions for you, Brenda. This goes along with one of our prior questions, but I just wanted to see maybe if we could dig a little bit deeper. What aspect of home sharing, be it financial, social, or even a task exchange, has had the most impact, do you think, on your day-to-day life? And I know you spoke a little bit about the social, but if either of the other two, you know, resonate with you, we'd love to hear that as well.
I think all three resonate with me. Certainly the financial is very beneficial to me. I have a life outside of my home, and it takes us to make that as thriving as possible, so that the financial benefit and helping me to maintain my life is certainly very valuable to me. The social piece, as I said, you know, just be able to have that someone around that I'm talking to, that I share stories with. You know, we can't go out during this COVID-19 to have a cup of coffee somewhere or something like that, but I would do that in past times with my students. You know, we'd go out and about, et cetera, so that it extended beyond the home. And I felt very good in sharing. I'm very proud of my city. So hidden gems of my city, et cetera, with them was great. And of course, the task exchange, it's lovely to have someone around the house that can do some tasks, especially on a regular basis. Oh, it's very lovely.
Absolutely. And if you don't mind me asking, you and your guest currently, what types of tasks is he involved in? How is he helping you, you know, around the house, even if it's something that's once a week, you know, whatever it might be, just to give our audience a sense of what arrangement you have.
Well, I'm going to say very honestly to your audience that I'm a bit of an easy. I'm really still very old school, and I feel like I'm supposed to do it all myself. So the only task I've assigned is take the garbage out.
Hey, that's great. I would love to have someone, you know, do that for me, but I think that's actually a really excellent example, because it just makes your life a little bit easier. One less thing for you to worry about, right?
Exactly. Take the garbage. You know, we have great pickup. It's twice a week. Have to worry about it. Just, you know, make it disappear.
It's done. Exactly. No, it's, you know, we don't need some big list of tasks. I think that is actually an amazing example and how it is such a real and incorporated part of your routine with your guests. So thank you for sharing that. And with your guest, can you describe kind of the relationship that you have built with them? You know, maybe thinking about it in a specifically, you know, during this pandemic, just to give people a sense of how you and your guests relate to one another.
I think that that the relationship that I have with my guests is a friendship, while we both respecting that, you know, I am the host and I'm hosting this individual in my home. So I want them to be able to feel comfortable. But, you know, even like this morning when I said, so we're talking about specifically COVID, when I said we had a very good conversation, you know, we were very comfortable, but we were probably 10 to 15 feet apart. You know, and it's just understanding and respecting. So, you know, and so we kind of so we continue, I guess the best way to put it is we continue the relationship that we had already established. We actually find those ways and understanding what it means to be social distancing, et cetera, to continue to have that extended sense of a friendship, while also recognizing that we are two very different people. We have very different lives, and, you know, to both coexist, to be able to establish some norms that we might not otherwise have established.
Right. No, that's exactly, you know, an amazing example of how you can still form a really meaningful relationship with someone, even under these circumstances. So thank you for sharing that. That's great. So if you were not home sharing during this time, do you think that going through this pandemic would have been maybe more difficult for you in, you know, any of the ways that we had previously discussed even, but just kind of in a general sense, it sounds like you are happy that you've decided to, you know, home share during this time. But let's say you hadn't. How do you think that you would feel about that?
Well, I definitely think it would be more difficult. I have to admit that even though I'm very independent, my guest is very independent, having that person in my home, because, you know, I don't actually interact that, as most of us don't, with our family members anymore. We don't see each other as much. We might talk on the phone, et cetera. So we have become more isolated in our homes
Mm-hmm.
under even the best of circumstances. Even little things like we all have a bad day. So I have a cat. I don't drive anymore. I used to drive everywhere. I don't. So when it comes to getting kitty litter, that's a little heavy to carry.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, for me to say, oh, by the way, when you're out shopping, do you mind? Can you pick that up? Can you bring it? Little things like that make a difference. So that I think that having somebody in the home, having somebody I can ask a special something of, and not feel guilty about it, uh, is very important to me. And I think that if I did not have someone in my home right now, I would feel more of a sense of isolation, even though, like I said, I get out every day, I still have those connections, but there would be a void.
Mm-hmm.
It would.
Right. Absolutely. That's, you know, again, it just really speaks to the benefit of having someone else in the home, even if it's not, you know, a direct family member or someone like a best friend. It's someone that is there to support you in the ways that you need supporting, that you outline, that you and your guests discuss together. So that's awesome. Thank you. So our last question, I know we kind of hit on this a little bit, but maybe something that we haven't heard yet. Advice for any hosts who are interested in home sharing, but may be nervous to start. So I know that we really reiterated communication. I know that's huge. But if there's any other little tip or trick you might have, it's also okay if not. But just how do you how would you tell someone that, you know, I think this is something you should try if it feels right to you?
Well, you know, the first thing I would say to everyone is it feels right to be nervous to start. And that's okay. And that's okay. That's actually a good starting place.
Mm-hmm.
Be nervous to start. I certainly was. I didn't just, you know, I had to give it some thought. So I think that's actually a good place to start. And
Mm-hmm.
ask yourself, well, what makes you nervous about it? You can begin to break down the components of what to explore and what questions to ask and how, you know, where your comfort zone is. So that I can't overstress the importance of communications. I also do I do my homework. I do
Mm-hmm.
due diligence, if you wish. I use all of the tools that Nesterly offers. Again, I was one of the first guests, so you know, I did some extra research. I would type in every name that I ever saw, I do Google searches, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I would with anything else that I take on in life. Uh,
Absolutely.
you know, I think that being nervous is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's being alert and being aware. And then
Mm-hmm.
if you're nervous, you say, well, what am I nervous about? How can I address this and find out more to be able to put my mind at ease or be able to say, oh, well, you know, you do need to keep alert about that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think that, you know, keying into our instincts and, like you said, figuring out why that feeling is there. And also, you know, to speak on our, you know, on Nesterly's behalf, if you do have questions, if you are nervous about, something specific, you can always reach out to us. We are more than happy to, see if we have a tool that already helps to, suss out a situation. We always do background checks on both our hosts and our guests that will come back, for both parties to look at and review. But also, like you said, Brenda, doing your own research. There's nothing wrong with that. The internet is a tool. You can use it how you will. But I really think that we're here to support. And if that feeling of nervousness is coming up, reach out to us. We're more than happy to listen to any questions, nervousness, any fears that you might have, and just try to see what we have to support you.
Absolutely. And I would like to also say that these students, again, I do students who are pursuing advanced level degrees, they're very serious about their education and their studies, and that's what they're there for. And that's why, and talking and meeting and interacting, doing the Zoom, however you're going to do it, you can quickly learn about, and you will be very impressed with these young people who are out there trying to just navigate through getting an education and going on with their lives and seeing how that can fit into your life. But we're always going to be nervous about the unknown.
Of course.
Step in and try to get to know it. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's beautifully said. So thank you so much for that. And those are the questions that I had, presented, just that I thought would be top of mind for maybe some of our hosts. But I do want to open up the Zoom now. If anyone who's joining us might have a question for Brenda. As you can see, she has a lot of experience with home sharing. And has really amazing, insightful answers. So if anyone does have anything, please unmute yourself and feel free to ask right now. I'll wait, a moment or two just to see if there is anyone. And if not, then that's totally fine as well. I know we went through a lot, with those 9 questions, and Brenda answered beautifully and very much in depth. So there was a lot of info to take in there, and might have answered some people's questions already. So I will wait another 10 seconds and then we will move forward if no one has anything, which again is totally fine. All right. So moving forward, does anyone have any questions for me, about Nesterly, or, about the way that our service works and functions? I am more than happy to answer now, but also it should be said that if you don't want to ask now, you can always email us or give us a call, and I would be happy to answer anything to the best of, our abilities. And it's okay if not. All right. So again, I really want to take a moment and thank our wonderful host, Brenda, for taking the time to answer all of our questions, to share her experience with all of us. It is so amazing to hear from you, Brenda, and everything that you have to offer is just so insightful and really wonderful to hear. So thank you from us. Thank you for being a host with Nesterly, and thank you again for taking the time out of your day to do this with us.
Well, you're welcome, Dory, and all the best to all the Nesterly hosts. Wishing everybody well, and looking forward to this next year.
Absolutely, Brenda. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone who joined us. Please don't feel any hesitation around reaching out. We're here to help, and thank you so much again for taking the time to join us and listen to all of Brenda's wonderful answers. And thank you again, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.